Hey everyone, today I want to walk you through my branding process for Kindred, a mobile pet grooming service. This content is a little outside of my usual work with food brands, but seeing as I recently got a new puppy and with Project Concept by my side, I knew I could tackle the content. So I always get started taking notes. So opening a new project concept board, I'll transcribe client notes onto the canvas and start to organize my thoughts. I can include my research about the target audience and why the transition from brick and mortar to mobile grooming makes sense for this client. These notes guide my decisions and help ensure everyone is on the same page moving forward with the project. I can also import my own images into Project Concept, so I'll bring in brands from my competitive analysis so I have some visuals to pair with my research. This project did not come with a brand name, so based on my research, I found that a lot of brands popular with Gen Z focus on indirect characterization, which is a way of describing something without specifying. For example, wet nose is a characteristic of dogs that feels personal but doesn't specifically mention dogs in any way. Kindred is the name that we picked because it encompasses all of the brand characteristics that we want to convey. Clever, trustworthy, calming, and of course, friendly. Once we've settled on what the brand is and what it isn't, so our brand traits, I like to write out a single sentence brand statement that states plainly what the brand is. So our brand statement is, Kindred is a mobile dog grooming service for new dog owners providing an at-home, stress-free, customizable experience. This is my brand statement and our guiding star that we can point to throughout this process and ask, does this align with our statement? You can see we've documented a lot of notes, and that can be overwhelming for clients. So I find it beneficial to summarize the brand into the single one-sentence statement that they can sign off on. The last thing I want to do is write out a list of deliverables. Again, so we're all on the same page about this project. This information should be in your contract, but I like to have it in my document to refer back to it as I'm putting together my mood board. Speaking of my mood board, now we can start to think about visuals. I'll start by searching for terms based on my research. I can search Adobe Stock without ever leaving Project Concept using the search bar at the top, typing in something like cozy, modern living room, with eclectic wall art, for example. I really like looking at interior spaces and landscapes. I think you can get a lot of great color inspiration. I try to avoid looking at only dog-specific imagery or whatever your brand is, specific imagery for that, since I don't want that to sway my decision-making process too much. I can also generate things inside of Project Concept using Firefly if I'm not finding what I want. So for example, I'll go over here and I'll add a new Firefly box and type in something like soft, colorful, abstract, geometric, plastic toys. I'll add things I want to avoid to my mood board as well. These won't make it to the mood board I share with the client, but again, it's helpful to include in my research to check against as I'm working to make sure I'm not including any imagery that I don't want the client to gravitate towards. For color, I'll start in Adobe Color at adobecolor.com in the Explore tab, and again, I'll type in keywords from my brand research and development. Dog wellness, natural puppy, soft friendly colors are all things that I can pull from my existing kind of notes, and I can find color palettes that align with those topics. As I'm picking colors, I'm adding them to a library to use in Illustrator later on when building the brand. I'm also downloading the JPEG to pull into Project Concept. When it comes to type, I'll use Adobe Fonts to start my search. Adobe Fonts has filter options where I can sort by the look and feel that aligns with my brand, as well as properties that I can sort by. Most foundries include sample graphics that show the fonts in use. I'll download those images or take screenshots to bring them into my mood board in Project Concept. The final set of images that I want to pull in for a mood board are for brand collateral, basically products with the branding on them. In this case, things like bandanas, the actual vans, collars. I can use my deliverables list that I wrote to search for those items on Adobe Stock. Normally, this is where my process would stop or pause, and I would put together my mood boards to send to the client. But with project concept, I can really focus my research and visuals to filter exactly what I want to share with my clients by taking advantage of the style and composition reference as well as influences. This is also the most fun part of the process for me, and I start remixing the elements that I like about my images to create exactly what I want to share with my clients. For example, I really like the style of these vans, but the environment and colors do not fit with the aesthetic I want to establish. I want to highly curate my mood board so the client doesn't focus on the things I don't like about the image by using influences to alter the image and get results that align with my vision. Narrowing down my colors also used to be a daunting task. Don't get me wrong, I love color, and I really like looking at colors and choosing palettes, but then the task of narrowing in on what I like can be time-consuming. Again, I can use Firefly to generate a palette and then use my color palettes as influences and style references to pull in commonalities and arrive at one option that reflects what I like about all of these colors. Once I've got some boards to send off for approval, I'll bring them right into Project Concept and create artboards. That way, throughout the process, I can always refer back to my Project Concept board as the single source of truth for the whole project. It has my notes, my initial research for the mood board, and my final deliverables to the client all together. Now that we've aligned on our vision, I can start to put together the brand in Illustrator. I can bring in my color palette, my type, and start to experiment with different ideas. I typically like to start with type and simple shapes, just using black fills and line work so I'm not distracted by color. I tried a few things. I explored creating a grooming comb icon, but I actually hit on the idea really quickly with the font. Rotating the K became the shape for the dog, and then from there I modified the letter to make it look even more like a dog wearing a bandana to match the ones the dogs might leave their grooming appointment with. Because of all of this upfront work that we did, this process moved really quickly for this project. Our brand statement refers to customization, so I wanted to create a logo mark that has several color variations, thinking ahead to different grooming packages and just relating it back to the idea of customization in general. When creating a logo, I like to create different variations: the main lockup with type, the logo mark alone, the logo type alone, and lockups for different aspect ratios for clients to use in different contexts. I'll lay all of this out on different artboards for the client, including one-color versions of each and versions on light and dark backgrounds to make sure that we have good contrast. Logo clear space is something that really helps clients who may not have a design background to ensure they keep a good distance between the logo and other elements in their final design. There's a few different methods you can use. I personally like to use the X height from our main font as a guide for creating the spacing around our logo. Something I really enjoy doing when it makes sense for the project is including an art style. I have an illustration background, so maybe that's just my personal preference, but these can be things like icons, spot illustrations, or patterns that can complement the brand. These will help me create product mockups later and are a great way to reuse imagery you created during the logo ideation process, such as this comb that you may not use in the final brand. I used it to create a houndstooth pattern. I can also use Firefly to create images for my mockups. The wording I like to use for things like this are product photography, blank white, mockup, white background. Again, I can do this all directly in Project Concept. I'm trying to get really clean product without any designs, any embellishments, or any colors. If needed, I'll use generative fill to clean up these mockups and remove any unwanted elements. Finally, I'll bring these back into Illustrator and use the mockup tool to take my vector brand elements and apply them to the product mockup photos. For the van, I can create a side view of the bus as a flat graphic that can be sent to the vinyl printer, and then the same design on the bus itself using the mockup tool. I'll create a new section for a website design and Project Concept as well. I just want to do some quick research on project management software and calendars to get an idea for how we could lay out a scheduling page for the website. Once I have that figured out, I can hop over to Illustrator and actually build it. And that's it. We've got our brand guide that we can send off to the client, including graphics that are ready for print for marketing products, I also have a fantastic board and project concepts to create a case study for my portfolio, and I don't have to go searching for all that information. It all lives in one place. For being outside of my typical subject matter, this project flowed really well from start to finish. I don't feel like I was hitting a creative block at any point, and I was able to move quickly with things really falling into place naturally due to the research and ideation, and I was able to clarify my vision early on, leading to faster execution.